like this come up, we have to rely on legal counsel to give us sound advice as to what to do and how to do it. And our commission will not act outside of the advice of legal counsel. So when that opportunity arises, we will do that. We have scheduled a closed session meeting, legal, with regard to some of these issues in the morning. And we will be speaking with an attorney then. This has become a very hot issue for quite a few people. But it's not something that I feel like should be a hot button. Well, it's a hot button issue, but whatever happens with regard to it, we need to be really calm and deliberate about what we do and how we do it. The reasons for the formation of entities like TCLA were good. It was out of a desire for Miller, Morgan, and Camden counties to work together for the common good. Additionally, the Missouri Department of Tourism has a lot of funding available to us, in which we have to designate someone to be a recipient of those funds. So there are a lot of reasons why having a joint group to represent our lake are very good. It's pretty clear right now that some substantial problems exist with the way things have been going. But it is in the best interest of our community to work together. We want our lake to grow. We need to have someone operating for us in a collective effort. Certainly places like Branson are doing it. And you know, just the reinvention of the wheel. A lot of effort was made to put in place a structure of legislation and statute laws that we could operate under. Obviously, it's important to actually operate within the framework of those laws. I think we've got some substantial things to fix. But I wanted to touch on some things that are important and a little bit of history. I've been around here a really long time. Effectively, Osage Beach was just a wide spot in the road. In the late 60s and early 70s, there were very few people here. And once the September Labor Day rolled around, the lake just basically closed. Over a period of time, particularly in the 80s, things began to take off. And once things kind of took off, businesses began to pop up off the lake because there were enough people living here to support them year-round. Businesses in the 80s began to stay open all year round. Restaurants, shopping, things like that began to take place. Then you had off-water hotels popping up. Certainly with the opening of the outlet mall in, I think, 1983, a lot of things changed. We experienced a pretty good period of economic growth through all the 80s and 90s and a good part of the beginning of the 2000s. But in 2008, the economic collapse hit this lake, and it hit it harder than many other areas around this nation. We've been slow to recover from that. Obviously, the collapse was centered around real estate, and it hit us really hard. Fortunately, though, I mean, we had a lot of foreclosures, but we could have had a lot more. I talked to a lot of people at that time with regard to the fact that they were able to keep their homes and survive simply because of the fact they were able to rent it at least for a certain period of time, short term. About that same period of time, though, or before that, look, I'm just going to go back. In the 1970s, there were literally hundreds of resorts on the Lake of the Ozarks. Condominiums and things like that, condominiums and hotels off the water kind of really put a bump on resorts, and they got hurt pretty bad. I probably have divided up myself personally as a surveyor, been involved in maybe the division of maybe at least 50, probably 100 resorts. The economy was evolving. Condominiums had something to do with that. Certainly off-water hotels had something to do with it as well. Well, starting from 2008 forward, our economy has shifted again. And in the 70s, when someone bought a home on Lake of the Ozarks, in a lot of cases, it was just simply, this is my second home, retirement, and there was enough wealth around that there were a certain number of people who could afford it. As the sharing economies expanded, the reasons for purchasing a home on the Lake of the Ozarks have changed. Certainly, you want to come to the lake and enjoy the lake. The lake is what we have to offer. But I think you can talk to just about any realtor now, and they'll tell you flatly that when they purchase a home today, they need to have that security of being able to know that they can rent it for a short-term period of time. Now, I really was not involved very much with knowing anything about TCLA prior to 2016. I went to some of their events, things like that. But in the middle of 2016, sometime or other, I got a phone call with regard to legislation coming around with regard to regulating or making short-term rentals illegal at the Lake of the Ozarks, or tightly regulating them. I received those phone calls. I did go to, I'm pretty certain, 2 meetings of the TCLA. At those meetings, there was an open discussion about leveling the playing field and making rental homes on the Lake of the Ozarks comply with the exact same standards as a hotel. That was what was said in the meeting. Shortly thereafter, legislation was proposed and brought before the state legislature with regard to regulation of those meetings, and I was given a phone call with regard to the specifics. I believe it was in either late July or August of, actually it was the last day of legislative session of 2016. And I went up there on that day, and the legislation that was proposed was, we're going to have this set of regulations with regard statewide, with regard to residential homes that are offered for short-term rental. And it outlined a series of things that were going to change with regard to how you did that and the way you were able to do that. At the bottom of that first sheet was all the new regulations. At the bottom of that first sheet was the word "and." And when you turn the page over to the next sheet of that legislation, it was every requirement that every hotel in the state had to meet in order to be able to offer something for some period less than 30 days, which effectively meant that every residential home on the Lake of the Ozarks in any county that was offered for short-term rental would have to meet all the same requirements as a hotel room. When I was able to read that bill and figure out what it was, I found out that that bill was actually headed down to the floor right then. So I did go down there, and we got hold of Senator Dan Brown a meeting was held with the leadership of the Senate, and when they realized that it was going to have that type of effect on short-term rental of residential homes, they were able to get that bill stopped. We stopped it on the last day. The reason why this is important for our lake is 71% of the homes in Camden County, in particular, are owned by people who don't live here. A lot of our economy has grown in the past out of people coming to the Lake of the Ozarks and enjoying that Lake of the Ozarks experience. The idea of something having the potential impact on the Lake of the Ozarks, I mean, Kansas City or St. Louis or even Branson, they don't have thousands of homes on the waterfront that are being purchased simply because of the fact that someone wants to have the Lake of the Ozarks experience. But after 2008, there had to be broader reasons why and safer reasons why you would want to make that purchase. It's incredibly important to the security of our economy to have people here. And having people here, and I don't care whether it's a hotel, a motel, a resort, or a short-term rental. We've got to have people here to have an economy. We need to diversify, and certainly, there's no question about it, that things like a soccer complex done right would be a welcome addition. With regard to the soccer complex, there was, I think around 2 years ago, a informational meeting held with regard to that, and apparently there had been some research done and some planning by Exo Strategic. They had the meeting right here in Camden, and I was approached after that meeting with regard to would the county be interested in maybe doing a TIF or a TDD, and I couldn't speak for the commission, but I thought for something like this that would be a really good thing to have. Later on, I found out that there had been conversations, and I don't know how long this had been in the cooker for them to be putting this together. Obviously, if they had the study done, they'd been working on it for quite some time. We didn't. No member of the commission had ever been contacted with regard to this complex whatsoever. However, we did find out that from talking to our bonding agent in St. Louis that someone had contacted them as far back as a year and a half ago to determine what our bonding capacity was. So there apparently were some plans in place for maybe Camden County to own that complex, even though it had not been discussed with Camden County or any commissioner that I'm aware of at all. Recently here in the last 2 or 3 years, we found out that the entire building of our roof system of our courtrooms was about to collapse, and it required a $3.1 million immediate repair. We need our bonding capacity to be able to make things like that happen. And it was something that any commissioner, we all know, we cannot afford to bond something like that. So, out of the whole deal with the soccer complex and the way that was brought forward came the issues of the way TCLA is operating and the business structure of the Lake Area Business District, and the meeting that we had here, I think in the last part of October, I believe it was. Certainly it was before the election. There are a lot of issues that need to be addressed. And in the process of researching this at the meeting, they requested us to find certain things out. We have been doing some digging, and we have certainly found some things out that need to be addressed. But I want to cover a couple of things with regard to meetings of the TCLA and the TCLA board. I sit on many boards, and some of those meetings I can attend, and some of them I can't, because unlike a municipality where they have administrators to run the government, and the city council is just people that meet to make certain decisions, the Commission of Camden County has no administrator. We have to actually run the government. So we're having meetings almost every Tuesday and Thursday, and typically several other times a week. Meetings are on a regular basis. I went back and looked through the meetings of the TCLA, and I believe it is correct that I attended 2 meetings, and my memory is clear on that. They show me attending, I think, 5 meetings, and on 3 of those meetings, we were having a commission meeting at the exact same time. I wasn't at their meeting because I've looked up the other meetings, and now I remember the business we did on those days. So those records are not correct. I've looked at the majority of, actually I went through and looked at every single date where a TCLA meeting took place in 2018 and 2019, and in all but one of those, there was a commission meeting formed or that took place at the same time that TCLA had their meetings. So if I sat on their board as an advisory member, I certainly didn't have an opportunity to give any advice, and I was not given an opportunity or even told anything about this soccer complex through email or anything else ever. The first email that I ever received from TCLA or anyone on that board was with regard as a response to my letter to them that I think was dated 15th, I believe, of November. So we have certainly found some things out. We have a closed session. We're going to be discussing some of those issues tomorrow. And there's some things that are going to have to change. Some things took place, not this last Friday, but the Friday before. A meeting was apparently called of either the TCLA or the business district. I wasn't informed of that meeting either, but they were apparently going to discuss my letter. That meeting was immediately canceled when members of the press and public people showed up. I'm not aware of any other meeting since then or any notice that took place of a meeting since then, and yet they do send a letter of response to me after that addressed by the board. So I don't know when the meeting took place that authorized of sending that letter of response to me, and I'm not sure which meeting group was meeting. The letter was addressed from the TCLA, so it must be the TCLA board. But based on the way that they're seeing, they're doing things right now, if I was a member of their advisory board, and I never agreed to be a member of their advisory board, and I can't imagine a situation occurring where someone would be required to be a member of a board outside of their desire to serve. Now, certainly the commission appoints people to planning and zoning boards or Senate Bill 40 boards or you name it boards,
We accept resignations on a relatively regular basis, and we appoint new people on a regular basis, and it's all done through meetings. So prior to last week, I'd never gotten a communication from TCLA by email or any other means that I was aware of. And based on what I've seen taking place in the last 2 weeks, I have no intention of continuing to serve on a board when they're having meetings outside of what I believe is their authority under the statute to do so. I prepared a letter of resignation that will be sent to them today with regard to that board. And we have some other things that are going to have to be addressed. Certainly it appears that at one time in the past there may have been a valid contract with TCLA to have Camden County's clerk handle and disseminate the funds, receive the funds, and distribute the funds in accordance with the statutes. But I've been unable to find a current valid contract. And I don't have the necessary knowledge to know what that specifically means. It will have to be addressed by our legal counsel as to advice as to how we proceed. There's been a lot of things go on with this. Folks, we have to have, in my opinion, all of the statutes with regard to a joint group to promote our lake. A lot of effort was put into that to make it something that all 3 counties could work together on to try to lift our lake up. It would be, in my opinion, very damaging to this lake to let this simply just fall apart. We need some joint effort. Obviously, some restructuring is going to have to take place, and I'm not sure exactly how that's going to happen, but I think we need to just be very deliberate about it. We need to sort out what's going on, take whatever measures are necessary to get this fixed. I love this lake and I care about it, and I would really like to see us come up with a comprehensive plan to make our economy diversified and grow. I think there's an opportunity for people who have short-term rental homes and hotels. We can coexist. It's my opinion that without short-term rentals and hotels, we don't have enough people here to support shopping and businesses. An effort needs to be made for us to really work together to protect the interests of all of us as citizens. Every person in here who lives at the lake relies on the economy of the lake to be able to stay here. And certainly there are a lot of retired people here who they just like, they like the low taxes and all of the things that go with the lake. It's a wonderful place to live. If the wheels have come off a little bit, I think we need to make an effort to fix them. We need to find out where the problems are at and solve them. This soccer complex may have just been one of the biggest blessings we could possibly have in terms of sorting out what's going on and finding a way to go forward. So there's been a lot of stuff going on. We don't have a quorum, but we will have one soon. This apparently, whatever this flu is going around, is pretty brutal stuff. But since we're here and we don't have a quorum and you people have showed up today, I'd certainly address any questions now that you are, or listen to any comments that you have. Keep in mind, this is just me. It's not a commission meeting. But I know that certainly some of you have questions with regard to me, so I'll just open that up for anyone that would like to. If you please, just keep things in order, be calm, be deliberate. Thank you. Anybody? Yes, sir.
My one question is you're right, there's a lot of controversy going on. We don't really need it in our community at the lake. But my question is, why didn't you just reach out to the TCLA board and ask them for a meeting? What was your purpose of sending a letter and using social media to put the letter out there and just continue to fuel the issue that is going on? Yes, a group came to you and asked you to dig into some information. You say, you know, you're supposed to be an advisory member on that board. You could have simply made a phone call to the administration of TCLA and asked to get a meeting and try to have a conversation with the board. Why do we continue to fight this battle on social media? Why are we not just answering questions and showing TCLA? Maybe they haven't done everything 100% right, but they've done a lot right. You know, the economy at the lake is what it is because they have continued to market the Lake of the Ozarks. The thing that you're bringing up is old history on these rental units or these homes to be rented. I know personally one of the things that I see about the home being rented, yeah, if they had to conform to everything that the hotels and resorts have to conform to, it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff hotels have to go through to be able to rent a room. The question more there is that making sure that the people that are renting those homes are paying taxes. Taxes to you, the county commission. Taxes to the TCLA that are supposed to be collected on less than 30 days stays.
It would be my opinion that it has yet to be decided whether they are even legally able to collect those taxes.
Well, they're legally able to collect. The statute was passed years ago.
And it,
Yes,
and it didn't include residential homes. Here's my, sir, here's my point. It's not about the TCLA's, what they've done or what they've not done. At this point in time, it's about whether they are operating within the structure and the framework of the statutes of the state of Missouri. And right now, they don't have a valid contract with Camden County to collect or disseminate any funds.
Okay, so if that's the case, sir, then are you willing to give that money back that Camden County keeps for collecting that?
Well, I'm
Well, if you don't have a valid contract,
actually, that's
you
a
shouldn't be
question
keeping
that's
that money.
beyond my scope to be able to answer.
Well,
I
if
found
you're
out on
dancing
Friday
around
that there was
stuff.
not a contract.
It feels like you're dancing around stuff, bringing up this old tax thing. I mean, I hear
Well,
what you're
okay,
saying. And we do-
when
we're
I'm
all-
bringing up the old tax thing, it is not in the best interest of the citizens of this county to have an organization going after another aspect of our economy to benefit one and diminish the other using tax dollars to do so.
Okay, but the thing is that I feel everything that I've heard and read and seen, it's like, you know, TCLA is like a business at the lake. It's a business to generate business, okay? That's what they try to do with their dollars. And I don't feel like you've given them any support. You've put this letter out there, and I just thought that was so wrong of a county commissioner who's supposed to help grow the economy at the lake, to put something out there like that, and not to just pick up the phone and try to have a meeting with them. I know there's other entities, okay, the problem, the other entities that are out there that do property management, okay? And when they do property management for people, so they're renting people's homes for them. I know those entities are collecting the sales tax and remitting us sales tax and the lodging tax the way they should. I really think that's all that was ever intended a long time ago was to try and make sure that everyone, the county and the lodging district were getting the taxes that were due. Okay? Now, the soccer field thing, I was at a meeting that you were at and you were in full support, and that meeting was not, it was just over a year ago.
That's right, and it was at Tantera.
That's right.
And at the time, I had been approached about providing a TIF, a CID, and a TDD, which means if it's a TIF, it's a CID, and a TDD, then someone on the same nature as the ballparks of the Ozarks was going to be in control of that, and they were going to get tax breaks to build it. That type of proposal, I would have been very much and still am in support of. The soccer thing done right, I would still be in support of. But when you get into transforming it into something that is going to be a governmental thing, and the government is going to own it, and the lodging tax is going to support it, they were taking that lodging tax to the maximum. And it was a roll of the dice of every dime of the lodging tax that was proposed on this ballot issue to support a soccer complex that would be in a location to benefit a few. And when you look at the background of the people that had put this together and proposed it and their presentation that they made, if you begin to look at their background, they've been in several other locations and they have been not very happy. The cities that they've been in are not very happy with them now. There's a way that this soccer complex could be built, and I wouldn't have a problem with a certain amount of lodging tax funds being involved in that. If it had been in some location, say, where our kids are currently playing soccer down in Lynn Creek, or another location, say in Camden or Miller or Morgan County, if that had been just, and I'm just going to use Lynn Creek for an example, the land's flat, no dirt work to be done. If you took something like that and you put that at that location, I can guarantee you that it wouldn't have been a $20 million project. And it would have also been something that citizens could use, our grandchildren could use. My grandson plays soccer. It'd be nice to have a really good field for him to play on, and you could have tournaments too. It was the way that this was put together and presented that caused the problem.
Okay, but that problem, I think we need to, again, we kind of need, we're digressing into the soccer. The soccer was put for a vote, it was denied, it's done. Okay?
But the issue
done.
that these people came up to, that the commission wasn't involved until members of TCLA wanted to meet with the commission less than a month ago, right in this room. And in this room, they made some rather bold accusations with regard to things that were going on wrong with TCLA in terms of operating outside of the law. That's when the commission became involved. That's when we said that we would be involved in it. And quite frankly, we've not liked what we've seen.
Well, the soccer fields were turned down based on the vote of the people saying no tax increase, which is fine. But the pieces that I remember about that soccer field thing too was simply though, they went out looking for land that someone was willing to provide. They were looking for overnight stays. They were looking for continued growth at the Lake of the Ozarks. Maybe the soccer fields would have been a saving grace for the outlet mall that is just dying and dying and dying. And neither Camden County or Osage Beach, either one, to my knowledge, is trying to figure out what we should be doing about that. Are we gonna let those empty buildings stand there when they're empty? Is that what we're gonna do as our government at the Lake of the Ozarks?
I am not denying that a soccer complex would be a great addition to this lake. It's the way
It was presented and where it was going to be. And the idea that it was going to be a $20+ million project for 8 fields. I've been in development all of my life. There was no effort made to find a location. This went so fast. When they found out, and the questions were asked through channels, will Camden County bond this? And we said, absolutely not. We can't afford to bond it. Within less than 30 days after we said that we weren't going to bond this project, it was placed on the ballot as a public thing at a expected cost of $20 million. I'm a developer. I know that it won't cost $20 million to build 8 fields.
And cost or whatever the cost is or isn't, but, you know, let's go back to what you just said. So how do we propose, then how do we propose to get soccer fields developed? I mean, we could try sales tax. It's not gonna happen. No one's gonna pay additional sales tax. You say, you know, the county can't bond it, so the county can't help make this happen. So who's gonna make it happen? Who's gonna make it happen to get something at the lake? I was at one meeting too, and someone said it was like putting the cart before the horse, okay? By doing these soccer fields. We need another hotel, we need this. I don't need another hotel. And you know what? If it is putting the cart before the horse, you wanna go buy the horse? You wanna put the horse out to pasture for 25 years plus? Because that's the last time anything's changed at the Lake of the Ozarks, okay? So by the time we get the cart, the horse is long dead, okay? So I'm trying to figure out what people think, how they think they want to make the lake grow.
Well, I have some ideas for that, but I actually think that
It needs to be a very cooperative effort amongst a lot of people at the lake to come up with a plan for growth. I have some substantial plans for that. I've been around here a long time. I know a lot about what might work and what might not. Gail?
I have something different than this gentleman's talking about. Does the prosecuting attorney also serve as a counselor for the county, or is it just prosecuting? I know some counties, they serve as both.
Not in Camden County. To be honest with you, at this point in time, based on what we've seen,
I mean, the meeting a month ago was not about the soccer complex. It was all about the function and the operation and compliance with laws of the TCLA. That's what we were asked to address.
And then have you also found any proof that a nonprofit district just for Camden County was formed? All the creation documents that I've seen.
I personally, let's put it this way. After we were asked to check into it, we did. And I've been able to find all of the documents with regard to Camden County putting in place and approving the formation of a Lake Area Business District. However, I have no idea whether those documents exist or not, or whether it was actually formed or not. Certainly there's a court case that exists that says going forward from 2012 or there forward that it exists. I don't have any personal evidence. The commission doesn't have any evidence of that other than the court case. And I'm not sure since 2012 whether they're currently operating underneath the guidelines of the statutes or not. So I don't know those things.
So even if the court case kind of has some bearing, that's fine. So in the creation documents that we've seen publicly and also has been submitted to the state auditor's office just 3 weeks ago for the very first time, which is interesting. There is just acknowledge of a hearing, and then the hearing has a resolution of intent, and then it goes to a lodging tax. So there's nothing in between. There's a misstep. So that's something that I was curious if all 3 counties could show exactly where the nonprofit was set up, because the state statute is different than like an ambulance district or a fire district. They don't really have the same type of law. This Lake Area Business District has a hearing in one section and then setting up the nonprofit in the second section. And then from there, each county would have its own nonprofit. And at some point, those 3 counties, with a 6-member board in each one, would have to adopt a board like the TCLA or whatever to serve all 3 of them. And I have not seen where all 3 counties initially came together to have the TCLA or any type of board serve for them. So I just, and then the second.
Those things I don't know.
Okay, and then one
And
more
the
thing.
commission
and then I'll
doesn't either.
let you-
And beyond that, keep in mind, we're the Camden County Commission, and under those statutes, we do have the authority to adopt some guidelines for funding through the business district. Those guidelines in the past, when the formation took place, were extremely limited. Basically, it kind of says, we're going to collect the tax and we're going to distribute it, here you go. And that's about, I mean, the formation documents, that was about it. Our powers are rather limited, and we certainly don't have, based on the advice we've been given, we don't have very much authority in this whatsoever. So, but we were asked to look into it, and we looked into it, and we're hoping to take some measures to dig into what the problems are with the way they're run.
Do you need a quorum to actually turn it over to the prosecuting attorney? Because in some counties, you do not have to do that. Do you need all 3 of you to sign off? To send it to the
I
prosecuting
doubt
attorney's
very
office?
seriously that you're going to see us do that.
That without a vote of the commission.
That's just something internally you want to do, not necessarily.
That's something that the decisions that we are going to make, every one of them will be made based on the advice of legal counsel and as a commission. That's what we need to do. That's why I'm saying be very slow, be very deliberate, but
But there's nothing legally preventing you from putting in the prosecuting attorney's hands right now. There's no law, rule, steps for commissions to do.
Well, I think any citizen of the county could do that if they chose to do so.
Okay,
I mean,
thank you.
Okay, could we go back to like my very first question that you didn't answer? Why was it?
Just let it go.
Why was it that you didn't just call a meeting? Why did you send a letter? Why use social media?
why did they have a meeting on the 15th with regard to my letter that they apparently didn't want to notify anybody about?
Mr. Hasty, Greg.
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank you for your letter that you sent out to Lake Expo and kind of explains your response to TCLA. As a longtime resident, I really don't know much about the TCLA, but I was kind of confused why this disagreement was happening. Obviously, if you're sitting as an advisor on their board, the first call should be to you, and they should initiate that discussion. Since they didn't, you felt like you had to respond. I totally respect that. I get it. My question to the TCLA board is, one, how did you get elected to the board? Who votes you to the board? If it's this business district, who belongs to that business district and has the right to vote? Is it just the resorts and hotels? Or if you're proposing to collect money from short-term rentals, do we get a vote in that? Do both members onto the board? The optics of the way the board operates now looks really bad. If the TCLA board wants to answer questions, why don't you just have a public meeting where everybody can get together and talk to you? Why does it have to be a closed meeting that even the commissioner is not invited to? That's my question. I love the fact that we have an entity that promotes the lake. I would love to see it used properly. I don't know what you're all doing right now. That's why I'm here, because you have one set of folks saying this, another set of folks saying this. I would just like to see, I guess, transparency in the whole process with the commission, with the board, with the CVB, with the chambers. I would just like to see where our proposed tax dollars for short-term rentals would be going to. So is it an unfair question to ask the board to have a public meeting that the public can come to and ask these questions directly to you?
We have one every month.
Is it noticed? Is it something
Can't
you,
talk.
can we talk at the meeting?
We'll give you 2 minutes, and if you're not on the agenda.
No questions, just comments.
That's
No
right.
questions.
No
They don't,
questions.
No
they won't answer
questions
any
at all.
questions. They won't answer any questions, they just let you
Let's
comment.
just go real slow here.
Wow. Okay, again, that helps me, obviously, if the public can't address questions, then that's not really a public meeting.
Do we all agree, can we all agree on one thing? It is, don't you all think that it is in the best interest of our lake to have some group working together to try to grow our area?
Absolutely.
I know that there are issues with regard to collecting lodging tax on short-term rental of residential homes, whether or not that's, I mean, I know the cases. I know the Huffman case. I know the Dominion case. I also know some of the other cases where they flatly said this is residential in nature. So there's cases that go both ways. But I've never heard anyone in real estate or any other field have any objection to paying lodging tax. It could be, and based on the sharing economy, what I'm seeing is we have an opportunity that this is going to expand, and it's an opportunity to make our lake grow. If there are issues with that, maybe they need to be addressed. But here we go again, though. And here's my point I'm going to answer you about. I've been around here a long, long time.
Me too.
And I have watched since the 1970s one group fight against the other group for scraps at the table. And for TCLA to take tax collected money and go up to the state capitol and undercut short-term rental of residential homes is pulling the carpet right out from underneath the base of our economy. And the reason why people come here is to be on this lake. Now, I've got a bone to pick about that, but I'm not picking that bone. Another scenario if TCLA has problems with the way they're operating, let's identify, you know what? Camden County, I mean, this commission, we realized that there were problems with the way we were doing business. No elected official that was here liked the fact that we were going to have a Democratic auditor when this is a virtually 100% Republican county government come in and pick us apart, but we did it. And I can tell you right now, with the new software we've got in place and the changes we're making, right now, virtually 100% of the issues found in that audit are fixed. If there are problems with the way we are operating at TCLA or the business district, let's identify those problems and let's fix them. I don't like the fact that we are using our tourism funds to promote tourism to move that in a direction where it begins to pick winners and losers between one part of our economy and the other. We need to find a way to work together. We're not always going to agree, but certainly there's a framework where that can happen. My frustration was, because I had almost nothing to do with TCLA, didn't really know much about them at all until 2016, when I found out this legislation was going to go after short-term rental residential homes right after one of the biggest recessions in history, which was actually a depression. Our real estate economy at that time was still incredibly unstable. You start taking that and pulling the rug out from underneath these people that are coming to the lake and saying, okay, I may want to buy this home, but if the economy turns down, can I rent it on a short-term basis? So that was dangerous to our economy. There could have been an opportunity to just sit and work things out, and I think there still is. Stacy, you go on.
Just have a quick question. I think a lot of people, taxpayers, TCLA members, have a problem with the way that the business district is operated when it comes to the elections of the board. When that board can vote to put something on a ballot that goes to a certified election of the county clerk, but the election of that board is literally the votes are just kind of cast and carried back to the TCLA office and someone counts them, does the county commission have the ability on behalf of taxpayers to call for a certified election that adheres to Missouri election laws when it comes to how that board is elected, so it's transparent and it's done in a certified way that adheres to state statute? Do you have that authority?
Maybe.
Well, Greg, actually the statute itself provides that the county commission shall adopt rules and regulations for the collection and administration of the tax.
Okay, and I think
You probably no doubt discussed this section with your counsel.
yeah,
legal counsel.
and there's no question about it that we're probably, what you pointed out there is at the beginning when this was all formed was it was a kumbaya thing back in the early 90s when that was formed, that let's all get along and let's work together. And the rules and regulations put in place at that time were almost none. Not none, but almost none. We are aware, and we've been made aware of our legal counsel, that we do have the authority to put in some rules and regulations.
It's not just the authority, it's the duty. You know,
And so-
and you're right. I've been around about as long as you, and I remember, like you. But this is a different time. Hindsight's
Right.
2020.
Well, so until a meeting that we had a little bit less than a month ago with regard to these issues related to the operation of TCLA, none of this has really been brought to light. It was,
Yeah. Well, now you
and
know.
yes, that's right.
And so the statute's pretty clear. It falls on the county commission to oversee the administration and collection of the tax. Now,
Yeah,
whether or
but-
not that includes, governance of duly constituted or otherwise entities is a different story. But
But
you're
keep
going to have to
it,
step,
keep it,
the county commission's going to have to
keep
step
it,
forward.
yeah, but keep in mind that the county commission is also going to have to operate within the guidelines of the laws.
Well, sure.
And,
Like that one.
and we need to have it addressed as to what those guidelines will be. And look, here's the deal. I mean, there's half a dozen schools out there that we distribute money to. There are fire districts, there are ambulance districts and things like, a lot of money flows through Camden County. And all that's set up by state statute, and until something is pointed out, you know, for instance, up at the school right now, something could be going on that they're violating the law. We don't know anything about that right now. And the idea of taking some action as a commission, we're not going to take any action as a commission until we've got clear-cut guidelines about how that's supposed to go, what the extent of our authority is right now. But I can tell you one thing, right now, until we get a legal opinion, there needs to be some more sorting out as to what they're doing right and what they're not.
Yeah, no doubt about that, no doubt about that. But the question was authority, and you do have the authority. I mean,
Listen, we've already been advised, we have the authority. Yes.
I just have a quick question in ignorance, but if it's called the Tri-County Commission, why are you the only commissioner being hit about this? And he says you have the authority. Is it just your authority? Is it the other two counties? You know, because that's what concerns me, is how much power TCLA is given over 3 counties with a questionable board that raises taxes. This is taxation without representation. That's what this is. That's what they did. And so, yeah, I mean, that's how I feel about it. And so, I don't know, but there's a lot of questions and they were rightly asked.
Yes.
It seems like, my name is Sue Westenhager, and I'm with TCLA. I serve as the chairman of the board, and I'd be happy to sit down with you one-on-one anytime. I don't do mom things, but I'm happy to explain what I know, okay? I left a banking career with Central Bank to have the opportunity to have my own business, a bed and breakfast with only 4 rooms, and I do everything by the book. When that opportunity presented itself to me, I stepped forward and ran on the board for TCLA because I wanted to promote the lake. I may be naive, I may be a very small businesswoman, but I think that most everything that TCLA has done under the statutes that were originally declared back in the Kumbaya days in the early 90s were done right. If, because things have changed over the years and we need to make adjustments, we're happy to make the adjustments. We want to be transparent. We have done nothing intentionally wrong. Just as this county was audited for poor practices, TCLA has been audited. The last audit was several years ago. But we're above board. We don't have anything we want to hide. When Greg Hasty was elected to his current position as presiding commissioner, I remember, Greg, going to your office on the square. You didn't know me from Adam, but I said, we would like to establish a relationship with you. You as the county commissioner are invited to all of our meetings. And I know for a fact that you get a packet every month with everything that is going to be on the agenda and with everything that went on the previous month. So you had some recollection, some information and notification of the meetings and what transpired at those meetings. I understand for the people of Camdenton and quite possibly the Double E resorts that it was a sad day when the properties in Camden County pulled out of the soccer complex, and then we didn't need to have bonding from the county. Osage Beach stepped up to do that. But again, I say, I think you've had notification because I asked you to come. I was at a meeting where you saw a PowerPoint at City Hall in Osage Beach, and you said, I had no idea. So Mr. DeVincent, Mr. Krantz, myself, and one other board member that I don't recall who it was, we came and we sat in the commissioner's office with you and Commissioner Thomas and Commissioner Williams, and we showed you that PowerPoint. So you know all the good things we do with the money we have available. I think the soccer thing is done. I got your message loud and clear. It went down in flames. So let's move on. Short-term rentals, I understand you people that you think you're going to be regulated out of business. And I think
They tried to
as,
regulate them out of business.
and I think as the commission, I didn't try to do that personally.
No,
okay?
but the board was a
No.
part of it.
TCLA was not a part of it.
No, that's not true.
Absolutely
That was
not.
the station.
No, but they,
Expedia was behind that.
yes, and TCLA kept those out of the meeting.
No,
That
No,
was-
that was their meeting, it wasn't our meeting, it was their meeting.
That is not true.
You don't have correct
The
information.
lobbyists from Expedia, which is down in Springfield, had the meeting at Tentera. The people that were invited to that meeting were only VRBO owners. It was as I understand it, and as I recall, that was a closed meeting
what we were
for
told.
VRBO
We were turned away.
owners.
We were turned away.
Yeah, but I wasn't, because I'm a Verbo person, so we were allowed to go
I
in.
wasn't either because I
So
represented.
that's kind of, you can blame us for that. if
No,
you
no, no,
like,
no,
but
I'm
we
not.
didn't.
But I'll tell you what, it does cause a lot of distrust.
There is a lot
When
of
there was a lot
distrust in
of,
the room.
you know what
Yes,
I'm saying?
ma'am.
It caused a lot of distrust. And it also caused a lack of, it hurt you. It hurt you. And that's why there was a lot of distrust over this, because here we go again.
But we didn't have anything to do with that meeting.
It's not your fault, but there was no discernment in it. There was no discernment that what Expedia
On
was
your part.
doing, what
Okay,
they tried to do
look,
across the nation.
Here's where this went south.
Yeah.
Here's where it went south. Legislation was being proposed
By Expedia.
and lobbyists by you
By a
guys.
Springfield area
No,
representative
no,
at the
not
behest
us.
of Expedia.
That is
It
not
wasn't
true.
us.
We had
No,
nothing to
it
do
was
with it.
not you. That's not what we're saying.
That's not what you said, it is.
You said it twice this morning.
Well, that's not what I
Let me
am
finish
saying.
where this goes.
Okay.
TCLA gets tax dollars. TCLA is involved in the legislative, you have a legislative representative. You have
We have
a
a
lobbyist.
lobbyist, we have a lobbyist.
And money goes from TCLA to CVB, and then CVB writes a check to a candidate who is or to a existing legislator who proposes the legislation. We're not in a bubble here anymore. People see what goes on.
Right. Not all of CVB's funding is from TCLA.
No.
CVB predates the TCLA. The organization, actually, as I understand it, and I've been here quite a while too, not as long perhaps as you, sir, whose family dates back over 100 years, but I've been here since 1976. So I do know that the Lake of the Ozarks Association, and correct me someone if they know that I'm wrong here, was transitioned to the CVB at the time that the enabling legislation in 1992 or 3, whichever it was, created or allowed for the creation by a vote of the duly qualified voters within those districts as proposed, i.e. within 5 miles of the lake. That vote did not create per se the TCLA. That vote created the various lodging business districts within those areas of 5 miles. There could conceivably be as many as 9 representatives, 3 from each county. Small, medium, and large, which is determined by the number of units that a particular establishment has. That first level is 1 to 50. The next level is 51 to 249, 300.
It's 5 through 50, isn't it? Isn't it under?
No.
51
51 to
to 299.
299, but it's 1 to 50. Ergo, anyone with an independent home that wishes to rent it on short-term rentals is eligible as long as they declare themselves to the offices easily now found for the last however many years right near the hospital and now in the new establishment just off of KK to present themselves and say, hi, I wish to not only A, fulfill my obligation to pay these lodging taxes, and B, thereby make myself eligible and have a mailing address and declare myself as a candidate for my particular size office. My wife wife and I have paid for the last 20 years, and we left independent other things as well, both of us in the medical field, and embarked on this business adventure, hoping that it would be somewhat lucrative for us. And I laud anyone else who does the same thing. So that's what I'm saying. That some of the shortcuts that are taken in the descriptions here are maybe a little bit problematic, and that is the business districts themselves, as they were lawfully created, then in turn created the TCLA. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's an association. Am I wrong about that?
That's the question.
The attorney at the time representing the Lake Association created TCLA.
So it was created out of,
Where is that?
for the business districts to work together.
So just a quick question.
Yes,
So
sir.
we should have 3 citizens from each county on the board. Is that what I'm hearing?
There should be, not citizens, business owners who fall within those described statutorily sized entities.
Lodging.
Actually-
Lodging is-
Oh, that's what I'm
Actually,
asking. That's
Yes.
what I'm
actually
asking.
6 in each county. And
So
if
we should
it-
have
Up to,
18?
no, up to.
Up
Because
to.
it's 2 from small for each county, 2 from medium from each county,
Okay.
and 2 from large from each
And
county.
the state statute says if you can't fill those other seats, if you be filled by other people in the lodging, they have to all be filled, all 6 in each county
I
per
can't
state
correct you about
statute.
that one, I do
That's
not.
a law.
I have that handy, but
I have to let him flash it again.
Folks, here's the point.
you're skipping.
If
a
there
step.
are issues, and it's obvious now that there are issues, because I'm gonna tell you right now, unless you can produce it, I've not been able to find it. Right now, no valid contract exists between TCLA or the Lake Area Business District with Camden County to collect or disseminate a dime.
Commissioner Hasty,
There has been in the past. Yes, sir.
I believe that's not accurate. I believe that the business districts and/or TCLA does have an agreement with the Camden County Collector.
Can you produce that?
You mentioned the clerk. I believe we can, sir.
Because I just talked to Teresa on Friday with regard to that, and there is no contract with her.
Would have been before Teresa.
You cannot have a contract with any elected official. When that elected official is no longer in office, you have to have a new contract with the current collector, the current commissioner. And there's serious questions as to whether or not you can even have a contract without, and this would maybe something that a judge would have to decide as to whether or not she can make that contract without the authority of the presiding commissioner to sign, because in every other contract, when I got elected to office, I had to sign a whole bunch of contracts with a whole bunch of different elected officials, because when I took office, those contracts were no longer valid. When Vicki Burns left office, that contract is no longer valid, because you don't have a contract with the current collector of the county.
You weren't aware of that?
Is that a statutory, sir?
Absolutely.
If that's the case, then like you signing a bunch of new contracts when you took commission, why wouldn't the collector go through who they had contracts with and submit new contracts? That's revenue dollars for you, because you are keeping part of that tax. Am I not correct about that?
It is the responsibility, according to our legal counsel, it's the responsibility of the entity that.
But you're gonna turn away revenue dollars because,
We don't.
If statutorily it's the responsibility, then, okay,
Yeah,
so.
so what I'm saying is, we've got things to fix. They need to be fixed. Just like the county had problems that needed to be fixed. We can't fix it if we don't know what's broke.
Bingo. Agreed, totally, sir.
So let's find, and that's why,
could that happen without bashing everybody on social media though?
Hey, can you raise your hand? She has a question.
well, you know what? You know, this bashing on social media, I'm not a member of TCLA. I had nothing to do with anything going on there, but the guy that was taking all the heat was me. I was taking the heat because members of TCLA came before this body and said, we don't like the way this is operating. County Commission, do something about it. Well, I'm not just going to turn and look the other way. You
Greg, I
know?
want to clarify one thing. When you talk about the legislation in 2016, that could have been incredibly damaging, because I sell real estate and do represent a lot of people who buy vacation homes. I went to Jefferson City in 2016. I wanted to meet with Diane Franklin. I was in her office. I called. The return call, because the legislation was so damaging, did not come from Diane Franklin. It came from Jim DeVincent. He returned Diane Franklin's call with reference to the legislation. So for them to say they have not had any part in legislation is totally disingenuous, because I have emails that prove that. So just so we're clear, they have had a part in legislation that has potentially done damage. There were lobbyists there. Jim DeVincent was there. I know for sure. I had no idea how he got my phone number. He returned Diane Franklin's phone call, and that's a matter of fact. So anything less than that is not telling the
Okay,
truth.
how about this then? And I'm just saying this, you know, it's a very hard thing to represent everyone. We're not gonna have the same view. But can we find a way to work this out?
I hope
We
so.
move forward, and forget
Okay.
about 2016
Okay.
and the election.
Let's,
No, I'm not
if
gonna
we're,
forget
if
about
we're going to move,
Jefferson.
if we're going to move forward, I mean, we've got the people in this room right now to have have this conversation.
You let Laura.
So, Greg, can
But she has
I just have a procedural
Yes.
question. So a lot of there's a lot of unknowns, right? So as you've been asked questions.
Yes, there are still a lot of unknowns.
Whose responsibility do you see it as to find the information to fill those holes? So there are questions about whether or not nonprofits have ever been formed, whether the statutes were followed to the letter. Where, how do those holes get filled? Do you see that
Yeah.
as the commission's responsibility to find that information?
That is definitely not the commission's responsibility, but we are the commission of this county. And we have an obligation to try to protect the interest of everyone. And if something's brought before us, I believe as a commission, we have an obligation to dig in and ask about the things that people ask us to ask about. We may not have the authority to fix it, and quite frankly, I believe that it would be in the best interest of TCLA and the business districts. And if I was you guys, and I think I said that in my letter, if you've got problems, you need to fix them. Take the hard step. Go in there and find out, well, is this being done just like we did with that audit? Is this being done right? Is this being done right? And is this being done right?
$500 a day fine for the last 1,000 days.
Okay, boy, I hope they don't have to pay that because we're toast.
You think Department of Revenue is just gonna bat an eye? Have you
No,
ever
no,
bat an eye?
I don't think that they will. I think we've got big problems there.
Miller and Morgan can't afford that.
Here's the deal. Maybe we can get some forgiveness there. And if we do have problems, my gosh, let's identify them and fix them.
I talked to the state auditor's office after you guys filed everything, and they confirmed that there's a $500 fine. They couldn't have told me that, I didn't even ask.
I think that we talked to the state auditor.
Yeah, so what did they tell
after
you?
You talked
So
to
what
the
did
state
you?
auditor, and
What did they say?
at this point in time, I don't think we
Yes.
need to have this conversation.
Okay.
Can I please suggest to the TCLA that next time they want to get into business with corporations, that they remember we are a conservative county, and Expedia is an international corporation. XO is not necessarily a conservative organization, and we need to be careful who we do business with. Because do you know what they're going to bring to our area? All that corporate money that's going to crush a conservative county. And that's exactly what their tactics are right now across this country. This isn't just about the lake. This is how these corporations are moving, and they are crushing conservative voices in our nation. You see it everywhere. You cannot get a job in a corporate office if you have conservative values. So remember that the next time you are tempted with the little, carrot stick, that this is going to be great. Because let me tell you, the soccer fields across this country are not great. They are ruining West County in St. Louis. And they are not going to bring the money you think it is. These are middle-class families with kids that are in elementary school who do not have money, and it is not going to bring the revenue you think. They're going to go to McDonald's, or they're going to pack their lunch, because I'm a mother. I have 3 kids. I have very talented athletes. I have a daughter who's getting ready to travel with volleyball. I know how these things are budgeted, and soccer fields will not bring the money you think it will. It will not, these people go for a little entertainment because they want to run away from their lives. They run their kids in these little programs everywhere, and it will not do what you think it will. We need to bring real industry to this lake. That is not real industry. It is not. And it will not bring solid families. I'm all about family business here. Trust me. I am tired of the bars myself. I am not into having all the fraternities here at these bars and bringing in more sex trafficking. We have an issue this weekend with sex trafficking. I am not into bringing in more industry like that. I want to see family industry. I like sports, but I'm totally against tunnel vision with taxes that are maxed for one sport. Whose idea was that? That is totally wrong. There are all kinds of things that we should be able, if we're going to tax something, to bring into our area and not max it for one single entity. That is ridiculous.
Greg?
Yes.
I would like to address at least the one thing you said about not being the commissioner's responsibility. I think under the statute, chapter 67, it is your responsibility.
Oh, with regard to the administrative rules, there's no question about that.
Yes. Yeah.
But-
So,
but
I
in-
mean, I want to come back, I don't want to beat you up, but it is your responsibility and you cannot abdicate it.
That's why we're looking into it. That's why we have attorneys working on it. That's why we're getting opinions. We're
I'm glad to hear you say that.
We are going to be making some changes, but I would much prefer it if TCLA and the business district step forward and say, we're going to find out what's going wrong and we're going to fix it. And honestly, that's exactly, I'm just going to tell you, this stuff we went through with our county audit trying to fix things, it was a mess. We were running 1980 software. There were issues of internal controls that didn't exist because everybody was running a different software. It was just like a sieve. We're fortunate that they didn't find any corruption in our county government, but the opportunity was there for it to take place. It was hard to go through this audit and to identify what needed to be fixed. It will be hard for TCLA and the business districts to figure out what's going wrong and fix it. But I think it's a lot better to fix what's broken and find a way to go forward than to just throw up your hands and give up.
So I believe the state auditor allows a entity to ask to be audited, correct? So we can either go in and try to get signatures and do all of that, but I guess it's probably more of a question to the TCLA, or maybe the commission as the oversight, I'm not sure, is are you willing to ask the state auditor to come in and do an audit, a comprehensive audit, so that then everything is out in the open?
Now see, one of the things that's important that a lot of people don't realize is an audit checks your books, makes sure that that money's not going to someone it shouldn't be. A performance audit, though, it not only checks your books, but it takes a look at the way you're operating as a governmental entity. And I was in private business for a long time. It takes a little bit to adjust to this. But what you need is an audit that takes a look at each thing that you're doing and how that complies with the statutory procedures that you are operating under.
I spent 30 years in the financial service.
And so that's what the Democratic auditor Nicole Galloway did for this county. If we've got problems, we need to take a look and figure them out. And there's always going to be tension between competing entities within an economy. It would very much benefit us to find a way to come out of this way better than we are right now.
So request the audit.
It's not conducive to our lake or any of us to try to use government as a tool to gain special advantage or to hurt a particular other group. There's going to be some disagreements, but we really, really need to do something the idea of the soccer complex and doing something was admirable. It was the execution that was poor, and that's why it was defeated.
I don't think anyone disagrees
We
with
need to
that.
do some things.
But you need to do something with independent oversight, because even the best intended people have blinders. And you need to have someone come in, as you explained that they did for you, that comes in and looks and has no agenda.
If you're holding a meeting on the 15th and then cancel it, if you can't answer questions out in front of public, you're doing something
Now,
wrong.
if you want to have meetings only one-on-one and not in a group, right? There are steps that need to be taken, and it is like trying to dig and find and ask the right question to get the right thing in a sunshine request to have and then play on the wording. If you want the games to stop,
That
then
meeting
the
that
games
took place
need to
on the
stop.
15th at Tantera was an ill-advised meeting.
The meeting was fine. The
Execution.
motion to table it when 3 people we didn't want there showed up was the problem. And that's where, as someone that hasn't been here for 20 years, that's only been here for 3, that quite honestly doesn't know squat unless you want to talk about physics or engineering. But I have known
Or
the
soccer.
board, so I'm part of the association, but I'm not part of the board, and I wanted to know. And it was canceled out from under me because you didn't want to be transparent. So
May I respond to that?
please do.
Yes, we posted that meeting, just like we have posted every meeting.
Didn't say didn't.
Why'd you
I
cancel
am
it?
aware, and I'm sorry.
I did come.
But here's what happened. It would be nice for us to be able to talk as a board. It would be nice, Stacy, you do that all the time with your short-term rental people. You don't have to
You're a
post the
board,
meeting.
you are a public board, that's a group of people.
Well, you
You
can-
have a
You're supposed to
responsibility
you're
to
supposed
the
to
public
represent
when
me,
you're taking
correct?
millions of tax dollars.
So I wanted to
I
be able to
understand.
understand what was going on. You just sat here
Compare apples to
5 minutes ago and
oranges.
said that you do want nothing but to be transparent and operate in a transparent manner. And when we came to be a part of it,
You can't.
1 second in, you motioned to table it, so it could be private. So we
No, we
wouldn't.
tabled it until our next,
Why'd you
But
call it
apparently he
emergency?
still got the letter. So you guys did meet at some point after.
Well, my letter was the subject matter of that meeting.
Right, but you got a response.
Right, and it was tabled till the 5th of
And that
December.
meeting was posted to be about the response to his letter. You canceled the meeting, yet still sent a response to his letter. So we weren't able to be a part of that transparent meeting.
did you?
So-
Where was it
copy of
posted
the
at?
letter?
Oh, I got a
At
copy
our
of it.
building,
Where at in the building?
right inside the front door.
Inside the
So
front
that's the
door?
only place that you
And that's where it
post
has to be
public
posted,
meetings?
that is on the left?
Yeah, that's correct. That's the only place I have to
So
keep up.
it's not that the
Okay.
meeting was not posted. I knew about it, and I showed up. But then I wasn't able to be a part of it if you didn't want to talk about it. That's not
Now,
transparent.
at this
When
You
was
point
say
in
you
time,
want to
though,
be and then not be.
Huh?
Point well taken.
at this point in time, because I had to, prior to then, I had never received an email from TCLA or any member of the board, ever. I had to look them all up on the website, put them in, so that I could send that letter directly to you. But then you have a meeting about that. You cancel the meeting about that, and then a letter is sent after that that obviously had to be constructed somehow or other because it's signed by the board after that date. When did that meeting take place where the board sat down and decided what the content of that letter is? That looks really bad. It looked really bad in 2016 when I went to the meeting of the TCLA, not even knowing that I was supposedly an advisory member, and sat and listened to that meeting about what you were going to do about leveling the playing field with short-term rentals. And then I go up to Jeff City, and the exact legislation that they were proposing was the same thing you were discussing in your meeting. that is really, really,
Dirty,
well, no, let me finish my thought.
it is.
That is something that is,
That type of rancor is what's not going to allow us to move forward.
So I don't
Because
want
a
you to move forward.
distrust of individuals who did not know the extent of the law that we should have been complying with, had ill intent, and have mishandled funds, is very off-putting, it's very troubling, and it is not at all conducive to our moving forward. I can speak for myself. There's been zero seeking to go ahead and obscure anything from anyone. The meetings are posted. And I've been on this board now for about 5 years. I'm in the second year, I believe, of my second 3-year term. And I know, and I probably can count on my hands, except for last month, the number of individuals who is open to come in and make comment or not make comment and observe the proceedings of those boards. And I know there's been some complaints about meetings, minutes not being available to the public. All you gotta do is ask. All you have to do is
Are you
ask.
talking about the meeting script from the website? Is that what you just were commenting on?
That's a bit of a misrepresentation. If you
Okay,
get to the
sorry,
bottom
it's
of
a
it,
coincidence, sorry.
we can get, well, see again, this snideness and this rancor
It's kind of hard.
is not productive when people don't show up for the meetings. And it's not just a problem with TCLA. It's a problem with your commission, sir. It's a problem with city commissions all around. People don't show up or pay attention until there's something that's a burden of their saddle for the moment.
Okay, here, let's
wait,
wrap up.
this one man, this gentleman here, he's got his hand up.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make a clarification. When TCLA said that they wanted to level the playing field, first of all, amongst others, Mark and I represent individual homes and condos. So,
Well over 100
yes,
between them.
between us, 150 probably. So we don't want short-term rentals to go away, or we would be out of
That's their
business.
business.
We wouldn't be able to feed our families, okay? So,
We don't own any of those short-term
yeah,
rentals.
we just manage
We
it,
represent
okay?
other people.
The comment about leveling the playing field was that there are a number of individuals who own and rent their homes and condos and don't pay the lodging tax like they're supposed to. So when the comment was made to level the playing field, we just wanted them to pay the lodging tax like we have to.
That's not what was said in that meeting. What they said in that meeting that I was at, and
Yeah.
I heard with my own ears, was that we want those short-term rentals to have to meet the same set of guidelines that a hotel room meets. That was said in that meeting.
Do you recall who said that, Greg?
We didn't vote for that. We sat on the board. We didn't vote for that. We would have never
The
voted for that.
legislation spoke clearly.
But we weren't behind the legislation.
Okay,
That's
May I
what-
submit this perspective?
now let me follow up with that, okay? I'm gonna give you my point of view on that. So, that's what took place at the meeting. And then you look and see, and I don't know what dollars go to where, but, you know, the next thing that happens is, you know, obviously, CVB gets a bunch of money from TCLA every year. TCLA writes a check to donate to a specific campaign, and that individual sponsors the legislation.
Excuse me,
That-
Commissioner, I believe the last time you told the story, you said it was the CDB who wrote the check to that candidate.
That's correct.
You just now said TCLA.
Oh,
so
no,
that's-
I misspoke.
Thank you, I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
CVB wrote that check. So the money went from TCLA to CVB, and maybe or maybe not, some of those funds were used to you know, that, and I'm just telling you, that's the way it looks to the public. That's the way it looked to me. So, and I go up there, and the same thing that was said in the meeting is exactly what's being proposed, and that legislator comes into my office and strong arms me, saying, you need to support this because it's good for the lake. And I said, no, because it's not good for the lake. If we do something that undercuts the desirability of purchasing a home on the waterfront, 71% of the homes in Camden County are owned by people who don't live here. If they start thinking, well, this might not be, I only get to come down about 6 times a year, is it really worth it to spend $450,000 or $230,000 or $1.5 million on a home that, and we've got tons of homes that are in the millions in Camden County, tons of them. And if that becomes undesirable as an investment, and all of a sudden, you've got this free fall that takes place in the real estate market, you're not gonna have any shopping, you're not gonna have any restaurants, and when that goes down, the hotels will go down with it, because there won't be anyone here. I was around in the early 70s when there was no one here. We don't want to go backwards that way. And I'll admit, that really got under my skin in 2016.
We're
But,
not in favor of that. We didn't push that.
okay,
We just wanted those that
but-
weren't paying well. So-
yes, and I understand, but your
That's all we
view,
wanted.
your view on that board is different from some other people's view on that.
I don't think so.
I don't think so, no.
We-
Speaking as a lodging establishment owner, no, not at all. And to characterize that we're in bed with Expedia, I'd sell my rooms direct anytime before I'd want to give them folks 20% of my damn
Okay.
revenue. So no, they're kind of a
So,
necessary evil, the OTAs.
And I've got you guys here right now, and I know we don't have a commission, and well, I could have just said, well, we don't have a quorum, we're
We
done.
appreciate the fact
You're
that you.
commended
yeah,
for doing
yes,
what you've done,
yes,
sir.
thank you.
So what I want to do right now is, since I've got the Frasers and the Ollies in the room,
More like Hatfields and McCoys, right?
Big shoot.
Well, we're not going to shoot each other.
how about,
It's a conservative county, you never know.
how about we figure out what's going to work? And I'm going to throw some things out
Thank
here.
Thank you.
I'm going to throw some things out here that I think can work. And since we've got time, I'm going to tell you what my view is. We have incredible potential. Soccer field would be good if we can get it, and it doesn't cost $20 million. But we've got the number 4 state park in the nation, folks. We have an area that is, an old guy back in the 70s said, why aren't you guys growing grapes? You've got the West, and this is an old man from Germany. You've got the best grape growing land in the world here. In the world, he said. I don't know whether you are aware or not, but a lot of, they had this big collapse of their grapes in France a long time ago. And the only thing that saved them was the grapes from Missouri. Everything they're growing over there is Missouri stuff. We have a lot of things available here right now if we would really concentrate on them. The type of thing that I see is us becoming very much like a Napa Valley. We need to find a way to connect the Rock Island Trail, and there are ways that could be done, to State Park number 1, to State Park number 2, to Ha Ha Tonka. We need hiking and biking trails all over the place in each one of those parks. It's kind of a lifestyle thing where we can promote this. We have this incredible place to live. If we can find a way to promote our hospital as an actual healthcare destination location, and I've talked to the members on that board. They say, you know, lots of times we struggle getting the very best doctors because of the cost involved, and they're having to move here and this, that, and the other. We need to have a conversation about doing what's necessary to change that. It would be very nice if instead of people leaving this area to go somewhere else for their health care, if people were leaving other areas and coming here for health care and maybe staying in a, if they're just here for a couple of days, stay in a hotel or stay in a bed and breakfast. Or if they're going to have to be here for 2 months, they could stay in a beautiful place on the Lake of the Ozarks in a short-term rental. There are a lot of things that we could do to advance this lake. And I'll admit, when I wrote my letters to TCLA, I was really upset, and still am, with the way things have gone. And it's it's not about the good things that they've done in promoting the lake. It's about this perception that they have moved into, and a lot of it is almost looks like nothing other than, let's just focus on getting people in hotel rooms instead of the broader picture. And perceptions are important. It's not just that you comply with the law, it's that you also avoid the appearance of impropriety. And certainly calling a meeting on the 15th to discuss my letter, and when some member of the public or press shows up, closing that meeting, that was not very pretty. We have an opportunity here to maybe go forward, and it's just a matter of whether we can or not. Yes?
Mr. Commissioner, to move forward, we have not posted this as a meeting, although we have many of our board members here. But I can promise you and you that we will discuss an audit at our next meeting, where we'll put that on the agenda. I heard someone over here talk about certified elections. We had a meeting earlier this year with Representative Susie Pollack at the TCLA office. I believe Mr. Krantz was there, and Mr. Utley from Old Kinderhook, and myself, and Russell. We talked about the legislation that she had brought forward to help the short-term rental market and to give part of the money collected, I believe, was to come back to your commission. We talked about that, and she said how disgruntled her people were about the lack of a certified election. I don't think our statute said certified, but we said the votes, the ballots that we get from each of the courthouse are in a sealed envelope that's dated and signed by the appropriate, notarized by someone in the clerk's office, and they are brought to our TCLA meeting and opened
until there.
when the election process is done. So we explained that to Representative Pollack. That was not the impression that she had had from earlier conversations. We said we have no reason not to conduct a valid election. Will you help us validate it? So Representative Pollack had decided that she was going to ride along and pick up the ballots from the 3 clerk's offices around the lake, and she would be at the meeting.
It would seem to me that there would be a process that would be very easy to put in place.
You know what? We've already done that. We've talked to our legal counsel, and they are drawing up an agreement for us that will need to be presented to each of the 3 county clerk's office. We're in the process of doing that now because we want to try to make this right, and we want to move forward.
Step 2, I would recommend, as I recommended in my letter, you need a comprehensive performance audit, and I hate to say it, but even if it kicks you in the dirt and you find out that, say, oh, that business district was not properly formed or there's something wrong with it, just fix it. You know, it really hurt this county to have to go through a audit and basically have all the skeletons dug up. Dig up your skeletons if they exist, find them and fix them.
Sir?
Yes.
I believe that every man and or woman that serves on my board and each staff person is just as big as what you are. And if there's something that needs to be fixed, we're happy to fix it.
I am convinced that that is true.
Greg, can I make one
Yes.
point? Everybody that serves on the board now has been elected since 2000. We weren't around in 1993 when it was set up, so I feel like that we're being attacked for, if it was set up improperly, it wasn't our fault. We're just operating under what happened.
How do you think I feel?
I know.
How do you think I feel as presiding commissioner whenever your members come in and want to meet with the commission and say, this is all wrong, you've got to fix it?
Right.
And I'm just
No,
thinking,
I agree with you.
but wait, I don't have anything to do with this, you know?
So I'm not saying we don't want to fix it.
It turns out I do have something to do with it.
Right.
We're probably going to maybe have some sort of a minimum set of regulations that we put in place. So,
So I have one other suggestion. suggestion. So the question came up, social media, right, we're in 2019.
Yeah.
Right, so the idea that the only place that you post a meeting, and maybe legally that's all you have to do, but it feels like you hide behind Robert's Rules of Order, like you hide behind those things. Right, you can make all the faces you want at me, but how many people come into your office on a regular basis? Like every day to see whether a meeting is posted?
For Miller County, we're gonna send it out to everybody in Miller County now, we're gonna email it to everybody that we have an address for. So,
Or get a Facebook page, have a website. That is how people get communication today. So the idea that you slap a piece of paper on the inside wall of your office is the only means of communication, and then complain that people don't come to your meetings?
Correction, it's on the door, the glass door of the building.
It was not that day.
It was not that day.
Okay.
We drove by the day. It had
It's on the
door.
inside of the door.
Not for
So,
the-
and whether you need to legally or not, if you're truly looking for transparency, then publicize where people can see it when your meetings are. Don't have people have, funlake.com, do a Facebook
Can we post it?
TCLA happenings page,
They have their own website. I don't know.
put it on your website,
TCLA has their own website.
any of that.
Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, so I know you don't have any power over the TCLA. Your power, whatever it may be, is over the business district, correct?
Well, I'm not really sure about that.
Well, I'm just trying, I guess what I'm concerned about is, right now we've got, it won't be the whole board, but they're the same people. What do we do on the business district, since they're the ones that actually control where those funds go? We do a special election or something and then allow people to vote, and if they want to vote the same people back in again, then it is, and if they want to vote new people in for new blood, we can do that. How long do we have to wait for that?
Yeah, I think that those are, see, that's all the valid questions that the commission has right now. We're digging into things for the first time that we've never had to dig into before. Honestly, the commission right now doesn't know for sure where it stands. And honestly, you know, you get 100 attorneys, you're gonna have 100 different opinions. We've got a guy who is a real expert. His name's Ivan Schrader, and he has probably 40 or 50 counties around the state contract with him, and it's like $2,500 a year, so we're saving some money here. I can call up anytime, and I've called up a lot lately, and he's saying, here's what the statute is, here's what the case law is. He can give you answers virtually instantly on that stuff, and we're getting it for ultra cheap. And so he's giving us some advice on how to move forward. There are a lot of things that I'm not clear on. Honestly, if the commission needs to put in some rules, we probably will. I don't think there's any question that we're going to do something like that. It would be really nice if these folks back here, yes.
I wondered when you were finished if I could answer his election question.
Yes.
You're in Camden County, small, is that correct?
Okay.
Right?
Well, I guess my problem is I'm not asking for when the next election is. Obviously, there's something wrong with both people or same people filling both spots, whether it was people that didn't show up or whatever it is, but now we're to this point. So I'm not placing blame on anything, but there's obviously an issue. So why, as being on there, why aren't we calling a special election? I mean, the TCLA is private. I understand that. That's something separate, but with a public organization, why aren't y'all saying let's do a new one and get new people in there, and then now you have somewhat of oversight, but you're just giving your money away to each other. That's how it's perceived, whether you're doing it or not.
Not the way it works. I thought you wondered when the next election was.
No, I want a special election.
I'm not ready to resign, so you'll have to
But
wait.
you can stay on the TCLA board,
I'm not
and we can have the
concerned about
districts
that.
properly set up their boards, as they should be operating separately.
Correct.
Prove to me otherwise.
TCLA was established as an organization whereby the business districts work together.
So then why do we
And
funnel
where is
money
that?
through the
Where is
business
that?
district to the
Prove to me where
TCLA?
that's set up.
Why isn't it given directly to the TCLA?
As Russell
Okay,
said
well,
earlier,
this all gets
there.
into, this all gets into the statutory stuff,
Exactly.
in which,
Sorry.
honestly,
I
the commission is not
understand. And I
super
understand
clear
that
on
you
yet where we're going with that.
legally,
Um,
everything's over there.
It would be in our best interest to try to repair this. And certainly, I think going forward in the future, I don't think it's not in our interest to reinvent the wheel here. if there are problems, I think we need to see if we can get them fixed. The commission has met their obligation. We had the questions that were asked by members of TCLA board approximately a little less than a month ago. Those specific questions we have gotten answers for, and they have made recommendations. If we had had a quorum today, I anticipate that we would have released the results of the inquiry that we had with legal counsel. But we don't have a quorum, so that's not going to get released until we're able to have a quorum. But certainly,
Greg, will that be released during a meeting whereby there is a quorum to?
yes.
You will vote to release that at that
Well,
time?
I mean, I guess if they vote not to release it, it won't be released.
But assuming the quorum would vote in a majority to release,
Yeah,
the
the
inquiry
advice,
you're calling it?
the advice to the commission. Then at that point in time, we would do that.
and this is advice on whose part?
This is advice with regard to the extent of authority that the commission has and what their obligations are going forward under those statutes in relation to the business districts and the TCLA.
And advice rendered or given or provided by whom?
By Ivan Schrader.
By a betrayer.
Yeah.
So do you have a date, sir, when that will be anticipated to be taking place?
Well, it would have probably been taking place, that's what this meeting was
Right.
about, but I don't have a quorum, so we'll just do it sometime in the very, very near future.
So there'll be due notice as
Oh, as always, yeah, and we send ours out, so, you know, it's,
So it won't just be on the door?
it won't be on, and that, and by the way, that is the requirement.
It is.
All it has to be is just on the door. And even if the door's locked, that's all it has to be, is just on the door.
Yeah.
Will he have any advice on potential liability of the commission for not acting under their authority?
His advice right now, I think, has been that unless we do something that violates the law, we don't have any liabilities.
So that's one lawyer's interpretation.
Well, yeah, sure. You know, it would be nice if this doesn't come down to judges having to decide this, and maybe we can get it fixed. Okay?
Well, I do think we need to be careful about piecing Manor Lake to corporations outside coming in. We need to be very careful and very wise and discerning about such things, because we don't necessarily want business just for business. We want to be careful what we're bringing into our area. And so that's a concern.
Yes, sir.
I was going to respond to Lee about the elections, and just so everyone in this room knows that the annual election will happen in March of 2020 this year. If we were to resign, the soonest we could have a special election would be like around February.
Real quick, are you talking TCLA? Or are you talking?
I'm talking about business
Business
districts.
Okay, thank you.
The soonest we could, I'm just talking about business districts.
Okay, yeah.
The soonest we could be re-elected would be February. So you're talking about a month there. And then of those elections, currently there's 12 positions available across the business districts. Currently only 10 of those are filled.
Is it 12 or 18? I'm confused.
Well, the way I've always understood it was that there's
Okay, that's
12.
what I was trying to.
The way-
Camden County is the
So-
only large, has the only district that has one.
But if it's not filled in other counties, it's supposed to be filled per state statute. Do you want me to read that real quick?
But Morgan and Miller they don't have.
It doesn't matter, then the smalls would fill the other seats. That's state
Seats
statute.
don't exist though.
They exist. There has to be a 6-member board per district. Here, let me pull it up. Go ahead and keep Michael.
So currently, the way I understand it, is that there's 12 positions available. The earliest you could re-elect all those would be, mid-February, and by mid-March, we're having an annual election. And basically what it comes down to, of all those positions, there's only 3 of them that would be impacted by I would be one of them. I'm the Camden County Small. I'm one of
the two.
I am one of the 2, but I'm only assigned for 1 more year after this. my term finishes up in 2021. So I would be re-voted on, but Sue's is already up. She's the other Camden County Small. She would be up for re-election in March. So by calling for a special, like having everybody resign and be re-elected, I guess my point is primarily most of the entire board, except for 3 positions, will be re-elected in March.
Or up for election. So it'd be just a waste of money to call for a special election, is what you're saying?
I'm not saying a waste of money. I wasn't trying to talk about
I
money.
get your point, yeah.
I was basically just trying to state to the commissioner really about the impact of it.
Okay.
It may be a minimal
By the way,
impact.
folks, just I want to clarify here, this is just me. This is not a commission meeting, and just my opinions are my opinions. You know, I'd really like to see us get this cleaned up. Gosh, I was going to have such a wonderful fall, and it's turned out to be pretty miserable.
I think everybody's tired.
And so, we'll be having a commission meeting in the near future where we're going to discuss the releasing of the legal opinion that we've got with regard to the matters put before us and specific questions asked by members of the TCLA organization. Those questions were relatively limited. We have addressed those things, and since we've been digging, we've come up with some stuff that we have concerns about. Certainly, I think the members of the TCLA and the business district should be concerned of those things too. No doubt you have legal counsel that are helping you with regard to issues related to that. And maybe it would be beneficial if you guys could be very proactive about finding and identifying problems. Even if you don't like the way it looks, saying, okay, we're going to identify problems and we're going to fix them. And then we probably need to have some conversations in the future about what the heck we can do to make our lake grow. Every available option. And I don't fault them for proposing a soccer complex. If the discussion had been broader and people brought in from everywhere, I mean even our contractors, find a very flat piece of land where you don't have to do a bunch of excavation. Find some way that we can. A lot of people should have been brought to the table to figure out how we can do this inexpensively. There's a ton of money that could be saved. $20 million for 8 fields? No way, baby. And that's why 70-some% of the people voted against it. I also have serious concerns about taking literally half of the maximum of our, because basically we're at half, Camden County I think is halfway right now. We were going to take all the rest of it and put it into one basket on whether that succeeds or fails. That's pretty spooky stuff to me. Find a way to cut the costs. Find a way to put it somewhere where it will really benefit a broad cross section. And like TCLA, people on the west side of the Lake, the Ozarks, I think probably would have been very concerned about that. People in Morgan County would have been very concerned about that. And obviously by vote, they were thinking. That doesn't, what I hate about this is the idea that because of the way we went forward with it, appearing almost to be doing it out of desperation, whatever it takes to get it. The county, Camden County, we can't afford to bond that. Osage Beach, I guess they can. We need to look at all the options. I really hate it that a soccer complex, because of the way it went down, a 70% vote, 70-some% vote against it. that that's like almost hopeless now. Maybe there was a way that it would have been, you know, maybe if we sat down all at the table and figured out there'd be some options. Every conceivable thing, you know. I don't want to put all the eggs in the basket of the soccer complex. I really think we're missing out on a jewel of an opportunity with our state parks, particularly Hahatonka State Park. You know, get them down here. You know, let them hide.
If somebody wanted to put something on the ballot again, do you guys look at the language that's allowed on the ballot? Because ironically, we were really confused that Morgan County had different language, but per state statute, they had the right language, and legally, the other two entities, including Camden County, had language that isn't correct per state statute.
I really.
Who oversees that, what they're
Yeah,
not?
I don't even want to go
know
into
you
it.
can
I don't,
actually
even-
have
that's way above, way above.
It's actually in the same statute down below. It says the exact ballot language that's allowed to be put on the ballot. So I just didn't know if that could just go on the clerk's office. That's all right, it's better.
I don't have any answers. I don't have any answers for that.
Sure.
So is there ever a ideas meeting? Does TCLA have a vision other than, is there a vision? Is there an idea to
There were
bring
public
people in
meetings for
over?
about 2 years between the chambers, the Tri-County Lodging, CVB, and business leaders of the community that went on for about a 2-year period.
Questions were asked.
All these same questions, what could we do for the lake and all that kind of stuff, and then they fizzled out because
But you have to
you couldn't
do
get
it.
anybody to agree on to do anything.
So I think you guys have a tremendously hard job. You'll never get everybody to agree.
Right.
But I think there were some red flags that a lot of people didn't agree with this last idea. And
Understood.
you guys went ahead with that, which was bad. If you guys want to be transparent, be transparent. Let me ask you any damn questions I want to ask you. Answer any questions I ask you. Money, where it's being spent, salaries, anything. It wouldn't take long where people are okay again, but it's going to take some time because nobody trusts anything.
That's the bottom line. You guys represent us. You represent the lake. We just want to know. We're not, we love you guys. You guys volunteered to do this. We get that. We just want to know. This all came across as a fight, and I think we're trying to fix that. We want to fix that because what the funds
So do we.
are for, what the funds are for are exactly what everybody in this room wants, is to grow the lake.
To your point though, sir, there was pro forma and some information that was brought forward, and some people took issue with it. That's fine. Reasonable people can disagree, and I hope they can remain reasonable about the numbers and how it would have worked out. I can personally speak that when the issue was being discussed, and it has been discussed, as Russell mentioned, over the last 2 years of what options. And frankly, the soccer complex really came out of the proverbial left field. And as something that was suggested, and studies showed that yes, it could be a go. And I was late to the table in voting in the board to support putting it on the ballot until the city of Osage Beach came forward and said, yes, we will bond for it. So it went to a vote. It's gone down 3-1. If people had honest disagreement with it, I don't have a problem with that. But as I said in various forums in the past, social media included, what really is problematic is the fact that there are some folks with whom I'm foursquare in the same boat in terms of philosophical and political issues that due to the rancor and the name calling and the ad hominem attacks makes me a little gun shy. So to the extent that the board that I'm a part of needs some more sunshine on it, bring it on. I'm fine with that. But this whole thing looks bad. It's really optically bad.
Well, I
to
think
have
what
a
this
first-class
looks-
county in
Yeah.
the state of Missouri conduct itself like Hatfields and McCoys, or be perceived to be.
I think if we were treated appropriately from the very beginning, it wouldn't have gotten to this point. I stood up here and asked the county attorney to get a conflict of interest, and then I went to your guys' meeting, and the mayor talked to me like a little girl. So we have been.
The fact that you shouted at a man in a business
I
meeting,
did not.
that doesn't.
He looked at me and said, "Do you want respect from me?" And I said, "I'm sorry, sir, I don't need your respect." But I mean, it was super condescending from day
You have to
one.
concede that's not a good exchange on either party.
I
Okay.
do not.
Okay,
Okay,
you know what?
and for the record, the mayor of Osage Beach is not a member of the TCLA board.
Yeah, but he was sitting
Yes,
out there.
sir.
and-
You right here.
We did come back in March, the EE Association, you came to our meeting, we came to your meeting. You told us we were the minority, okay? Do you remember saying those exact words?
I do.
Exactly, we're the minority. It's obvious that we are not the minority, and we're not the minority. And as a paying member into the TCLA, you just shoved us aside. You said that we were the minority. It's obvious after the vote failed that we were not the minority.
I think in March, you were the minority. I think there was such a wonderful
But Sue,
campaign
we
done by
called,
different people, but it's over, guys.
we called so
Do the
many
rest.
people, and they
It's
said,
not
no,
over.
we didn't
We
want
need
this, and
to
you pushed
move
it through
forward.
anyway.
There were other people,
Okay.
just as opinionated as you, that thought it was a good idea.
Okay.
So I think the discounting, I was going to say, the discounting that you have had for us, I mean, I was at that meeting.
Yep.
I can pull up the email where you said, well, we just have to agree to disagree.
And I
That
still
ult-
agree with that comment. I'm sorry, Laura.
Oh, okay, so let me. And then in the bottom, your last paragraph was there's still a lot of work to do and you need to trust us and give us time to dig into it, right? 2 days later, the ballot language was approved. You had no intention of digging into any more or finding any more information. You lied to us, Sue. So when you are asking for us to trust you, you need to look at what the optics of those things are. That when we come in good conscience and trying to be part of the process, we're put off, we're given information that from my vantage point was a lie, that you made it seem like we're just looking at this. We're just figuring it out. There's still a lot more to do. And then you were already moving forward with ballot language. That is disingenuous. And I think that you guys need to own that. And that's what started this fall.
This group that made the presentation down here at the
XO? No.
XO.
Yeah.
I've looked into their background, I've checked all that, and I would let them build anything for me.
You're also far too trusting, right? Because I sunshined all of the communication on the soccer field, and I got like 4 emails. And you referred me back to meeting minutes that said there was a presentation and to meeting minutes that said that there was a vote. That is, as elected officials, right, as you representing me as a resort owner, I expect you to do your due diligence on anything that an outside entity is going to do. You should be questioning everything that they say and doing your own research.
Some of that was done in a public meeting, though, not in a
Their pro
Yes,
forma
sir.
is not set in stone.
I agree with you, but some of the stuff, due diligence was at public meetings that wasn't a part of our meeting. You know?
I'll tell you, I asked specifically in the sunshine that said, where did you go out? Because the EXO study claimed that there were X amount of open rooms, right, based on their research, right? And I said, where did you go out and survey your own members or do anything to see what the open capacity was in those 2 shoulder seasons to understand if what actually existed at the lake was fit in with what they were claiming that you could do? And the answer was no, right? We did nothing. So you have a wide constituency that you simply could have gone out and said, hey, how do things look for you from March to June and from August through November? What is your availability on those types of weekends to validate what you're being told? And that, to me,
I did
is a very
speak with as
simple.
many of my Camden medium properties as I could, with one glaring exception, and I'm sincerely apologetic for not actually speaking with the Drakes. And that's on me, and I own that fully. But I
If it
did
was
speak
me-
with representatives of everyone else on
If
Camden
it was
medium that I
me
could
trying to
reach.
bring people to the lake in the fall, and we passed that 3% tax, and we had that chunk of money, quite frankly, one of the ideas that I would propose would be to do things like they do at meetings all the time, including CVB and various different groups. Take a chunk of that tax money and just have tickets. Have those tickets at the places of business, the hotels. Have them hidden out in Ha Ha Tonka Park and all of our facilities. Come down to the lake. Have a chance for the drawing for, let's see, I mean, you've got 20 million over 20 years, you know? If you're giving away $50,000 a weekend in the fall season, or make it 100,000,
I come.
there, you know, how many people would go into Ha Ha Tonka tromping around looking for a little egg with a ticket in it, if you had a chance for a drawing for $150,000 or $200,000? You know, things like that. Yeah, and the bass tournaments are a good thing. Things like that. There are a lot of things that we can do that are creative ideas. But you know, honestly, with what took place a month ago, it was basically this is generated from being we don't want the soccer complex to. These people are doing this, this, and this, and these are all violations of law. We want the commission to do something about it. We did everything that was requested of us as a commission. We've looked into it and we've gotten opinions, and there are, I believe, based on what I've seen, there are things to be fixed. I have looked at everything that I can look at in terms of the guidance that we've been given.
If you're resigning, who's taking your place? Do you have to appoint someone?
That will be up for them to decide. My concerns with the resignation are because of what took place on the 15th and what took place thereafter in a response letter. In one meeting, I mean, I guess they could have had me come to that meeting and I'd have talked to them about it. But I wasn't invited, even though I hand keyed in every one of their email addresses. It's just based on those things that I feel uncomfortable as a governmental representative in advisory capacity. I'm not sure, honestly, right now, whether they're structured at all right or not, and I don't know. Anybody else?
I don't think you should be resigning that position.
Yeah, why don't you stay on it, and if you think it's structured wrong, then help us to structure it right.
If you want to fix it, you should not be resigning your position on that board, and you should be doing everything in your power to try and attend those meetings.
Yeah, I don't think
I
I
would
want you to
submit that
resign.
the presiding commissioner is, by the statute, supposed to be.
No, any of the commissioners
that's
can be.
not the statute.
Any commissioners.
It can be any governmental person of that county. It could be the collector.
So when you say governmental person, the definition would be a countywide elected official.
Well, I mean, the statute, I'd have to go back and look at the
I would too,
statute,
because
but
I don't recall.
it's real clear, it doesn't have to be the presiding. But I would think that the person who gets put on that board should be asked to be put on it, should accept to be put on it, and should be notified that they're on it.
And should be willing to commit to being at a majority of
Well,
meetings.
the thing that I'm concerned about right now is when they begin to have meetings in which the advisory member of the board is not asked to attend, like took place on the 15th, when the advisory member of the board doesn't get a letter or gets a letter of response that took place sometime after that from the board, when there's no evidence that the board had a meeting to discuss that, that's a bit of a problem.
Well, with all due respect, Commissioner, it's kind of like you publishing a statement about Tri-County Lodging's board without ever talking to the board. You know, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, I really want to see this get fixed, but I'm going to resign. I mean, where's the leadership?
This was
in that?
pretty rank.
Well,
really,
where is the,
for it to
I
have
don't
been
want to
published
bring
in
this into argument. I'm just asking a question. Where is the leadership in that? You think we should stay and we should fix it, and you point out what we did wrong that really offended you and caused you to have this opinion. But you dismiss what you did that put us in a defensive mode. I don't, you know, I don't think that's.
To be honest with you, I was put in this position by your members when they came to this commission.
You say that, but you didn't approach the board and say, hey, board, I had some of your members come to me, let's talk about this. No, you published a statement that vilified our board. And you just want to dismiss that in this meeting, but you want us to do the right thing.
You know, whenever you begin to have things happening in the background, like the deal about, when you see the sequence of events of what took place with, at the very first meeting that I went to, Mr. Commissioner, would you do a TIF on this project? Well, yeah, I think we would probably do a TIF. And so, and then you find out a year and a half later that our bonding agent was approached not like a month ago, but before the thing was ever brought forward.
Do you know who approached the bonding agent? Because I would like to know.
Yeah. I'd just simply rather not say.
Was it somebody on our board, though?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I want to point out.
So
So it wasn't
the board
us.
didn't do it.
So the board didn't do it.
That kind of.
You've been insinuating like the board approached this bonding agent. This whole meeting, you basically insinuated that the board approached this bonding agent. And now you say it wasn't a member of them. You know, there was a whole lot of people, like they said earlier, involved in this for a couple of years.
Well,
Trying to be from chambers to a whole lot of people. And they were all, and when someone asked you probably about
I
it.
respect your basis why you don't feel that the county's in a
Right.
position to bond for it. And if that went through whatever channels, I mean, we can question what channels that went through or not. But if in the city of Osage Beach coming forward and saying yes, they would be the bonding.
This was done indirectly. I heard it from another commissioner who had conversations with someone. That's why I'm not going to
And we appreciate that.
I'm not going to.
But I just wanted to make sure it wasn't somebody on our board, because I'd like to know about that.
It was not a member of your board, not any member of your board.
Okay, thank you.
But it was people who operate inside your realm. Okay?
Yep.
So they were members, is what you're saying. They're.
I'm not going to get into that anymore.
Would be the only one.
I'm just going to say that we were approached by people who represent.
Because this is the first time that most of us have heard about it.
Well, look,
Right.
when we talked to our bonding agent in St. Louis,
Right.
we were told, I just want you to know that this took place, and it's been going on for about a year and a half. And that was right, not very long before the election.
The TCLA does have some liability with people who they pay monthly administration fees to.
All I'm trying to say is that not a member of this board.
It's somebody that you contract with.
And if there's a need for some oversight or some correction to be taken
perhaps.
place.
And that's why we want to know about it, okay?
Well,
If
we
it's-
probably wouldn't have been too happy with what happened on the vote, that if you went to him and you guys are talking behind. I mean, if there's a time this needs to be brought out in public, it's
Right.
now.
But we weren't, so that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, I'm saying, you were saying Greg should not have sent his letter out, and you two should have talked. I don't know that I agree with that, because right now, we don't trust anything that's going on.
Well, I think if we would have met and we just blew him off, then I think he has every right to publish that letter. Well, first of all, you have every right to publish the letter anyhow, so. You know,
Whether it's advisable or not.
Right, but I just think that, had we spoken first and then got nowhere, then, yeah, I would have done the same thing.
The commission represents the people, not a private.
Look, I wasn't involved in this before, other than I didn't think this soccer complex thing. At the beginning, when they were talking about tipping something and some guy building it, gosh, that'd be great. That's no different than ballparks of the Ozarks. We give them whatever they want, they'll build it. And that's what at the very first meeting here in Camden, and I believe that they did just say that they were going to explore every possible avenue. And that's fine. We need to look at every avenue, and there's no question, we need to do things. But when it suddenly, I mean, it was just almost suddenly, it decided to become a public project, and the county was gonna own it, and we were gonna bond it. And we found out out way later. And we just simply said, no, we can't afford to do this. We can't afford to bond it. It wasn't long, I mean, almost immediately after that, Osage Beach said they would, and it was on the ballot. And by that time, I think the initial cost they talked about was it could cost as much as $16 million to build it. I think we went backwards and looked at what meeting took place here in town. And I was just thinking at the time, gosh, that's a lot of money. And then by the time it got to the ballot, I mean, it was 20 million or 20 million plus. If you find a flat place to build it, like Lynn Creek Bottom, I mean, any one of you can go online this afternoon and research and figure out what people have actually spent at those soccer complexes. And you know, at the right location, you can build one of these for probably $600,000-$700,000 each. I mean, nice ones.
So I have a question for the TCLA. So you guys have the audits that were reported or put up, and then they're about the same every year, and it says that there's omission of budget controls. It's almost the same for every year. It's like they cut and paste. Even one has a date for December 2013 for fiscal year 2014, so that might want to be cleared up. But I just would like maybe for the next meeting to know, and I'll ask this at the meeting, so just give you a heads up, what accountability measures you guys have put into place for your own audits that you're already getting from the CPAs for budget controls. So in the body of your own audits, it says what is recommended and what you have done for accountability measures to remedy those issues that have been almost in every audit that we have seen. You don't need to answer that right now. I'm just saying I'd like to see that come forth. And I have to go, so sorry.
Okay.
Thanks,
Well,
everyone. Thank you.
I'm meeting with her. Thank you for your time, Commissioner. Thank you all for
all right.
coming.
Anybody else have anything?
Well, to follow up on Russell's, would you, sir, agree to rescind any resignation and/or make it subject only to the appointment of someone that fits the rough parameters that I've heard you yourself even describe here today? And make such a resignation only operational, functional until such time as that happens. I understand you're the presiding commissioner of a first-class county in the state of Missouri. There's a lot of responsibility with that. You've got a lot of things you've been trying to clean up, and I do understand and I respect that. So if it doesn't have to be the presiding commissioner, and I can't speak to whether that's true or not in the statute, I'd have to look at it again myself. If that is indeed the case, would you look at alternate individuals who would have an interest, a willingness, and time to go ahead and fulfill that obligation in that advisory?
I'll be honest with you. I don't think right now, the way things have gone and from what people have brought forth with regard to shortcomings of the business districts, I mean, I don't see right now a valid contract between Camden County and TCLA or the business district, either one. That puts things in a very difficult position for me. And
so at such time as such a contract is deemed to be either in effect, or number two, it's deemed that it's not necessary. And
it's necessary statutorily.
But if one was established, if that has some continuation.
I mean, there was one that existed in 2011. I haven't been able to find any evidence of one that existed prior to 2011 or since Vicki Burns left office. So there's some issues that have to be addressed, or how can I be comfortable being on this board if they are not being addressed? These are statutory violations.
And I take you at your word on that until I can have a chance to either verify or falsify. So
Yeah.
I'm
So-
with you on that matter, so yes, I understand.
Okay?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.